Yeah, it went fast. It went by fast.
I know. I looked at the time and I was like, oh, we're at just now, but earlier I was like, we're already at like 49 minutes. I was like, geez, this went by really fast.
Yeah. Wait, I'm cutting the recording.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm joined tonight here with Rémy Devaux, who is 50% of PUNKCAKE Délicieux. I hope I'm doing the pronunciation okay so far. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Rémy.
I can do it. So, hi everyone. I am Rémy Devaux, and yeah, I'm 50% of PUNKCAKE. Délicieux.
I love it. Is that you on the intro screen, by the way?
It is. Actually,
it sounded too good. I was like, it has to be you.
Yeah, I recorded the audio in the middle of the night before we released Antecrypt because, yeah, it had to be done. And I was really badly organized.
Hey, you know what? It's such a great, time. I mean, it's such a small part of the game, and I mean, you could even argue that it's not even part of the game per se.
Yeah.
But like when you boot up the game, and it just starts off with like this kind of fun, like cheeky. It sets the right tone of like just like, hey, you're in for a fun game.
Yeah,
like, that's definitely the experience I had. Booting it up. I always appreciate a good splash screen. Yeah, it was really cool, really fun stuff. And yeah, the team PUNKCAKE, we mentioned that you're 50% of the team, and the other half is
Benjamin Soule. Yeah.
Nice.
He's a game designer. He worked at Motion Twin. He actually founded Motion Twin with a bunch of other people.
Wow. I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
And he worked with them for I don't remember. I think between 10 and 15 years. And then he stopped something like 10 years ago. And and yeah, but he was working because Motion Twin now is mostly known for Dead Cells, but they actually did a ton of web games in the past, and they were actually fairly well known in France for their web games. Maybe not internationally, but yeah, they actually had some really good success in France, and so yeah, he felt comfortable enough with the money he made back then to just retire. At I don't know how old he was at that point. He must have been like 30 or something. So,
jeez, awesome.
Yeah, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah,
and now I'm pulling him out of retirement.
Say, hey, you need to still be making games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I know you already mentioned that Antecrypt was the first game that you two put out, and right off the bat, kind of hitting the ground running with like, hey, we're going to release a game every month. And set up like a Patreon, and I know people are maybe familiar with like the Sock Pop Collective, or even we've talked a lot about Super Try on the podcast, who made the game Hack, if you're familiar. We actually discovered their games through the Itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality from last year.
Nice. I'm not actually familiar with them. But.
Hack is so fun, and Hack is spelt HAQUE, and it's a top-down, RPG, like really old-school RPG roguelike kind of thing.
Oh, yes. But, I do know about that game, actually. Yeah,
it's really, really fun. And then last year, they actually did a thing where through their Patreon, and I think they even just put them up on their Itch.io, but they did like a game a year, or a game a month, I'm sorry, over the course of a year. But then after that year, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that again in 2021. Right. But you two are like hitting the ground running with like, hey, we've done a bunch of game jams together. We've done a bunch of smaller PICO-8 projects, like kind of, you really have to manage like not only the creativity and the productivity, but the scope as well. Because I think you two really nailed that with Antecrypt. Because like, even though you might be able to look at the game itself on the surface and go, oh, this is just a top-down arena shooter, and just be able to kind of simplify it like that if somebody were to just look at it at first glance. But I mean, I've sunk like 5 or 6 hours into this game already, and I'm somebody who like probably won't even beat a game if a game lasts more than 5 hours or 10 hours. Like if it's a narrative game, I'm probably not going to finish it, because it's just, I want to experience new mechanics and stuff. And with Antecrypt, you're throwing in new weapons, new guns, like the risk reward. Like you're just, I really like being able to, and a lot of your game. That's why I've followed your PICO-8 stuff so much from both of you, because it's just like your games have such that immediacy to the gameplay, and they don't overstay their welcome. It's just like, hey, this is a fun concept, and just play it until it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they really never stop getting fun. So
yeah, that's actually something that's super important to both of us.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. Benjamin is actually even more so interested in like working the depth of the mechanics, like exploring the game mechanics of his games, and constantly bombarding the player with new things to do and new ways to play. And it's great. And myself, as you said, I really don't want the player to get bored. So either I'm going to make something super short and like own it to the death, or I'm just going to have a ton of visual effects or just new things to do. And just make sure that the experience is interesting and stays interesting.
Yeah, and you definitely accomplish that with the visual effects, and not only in Antecrypt, but even in like the PICO-8 stuff that you do, like even just some of the more I know sometimes I see you even posting just on Twitter. I think I don't know if they're those tweet carts or whatever they are.
Yeah,
where it is just like kind of like a visual effect almost. It isn't like a game per se.
Yeah, sometimes it's tweet carts, sometimes not even. Sometimes I'm just gonna write some code and try to make pretty stuff appear on my screen, and if it's good enough, I'll just share it out on Twitter.
Yeah. It's always a treat when that pops up in the feed, and they're always so eye-catching. And that is not just about those tweet carts or little visual images too. It definitely goes for your games as well, and not just Antecrypt. Nice. But again, like you really like some of your games really make that PICO-8 sing, like the One Room Dungeon.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a very simplified look, or Gifts of Venus kind of has that similar look as well, or Gifts on Venus. But it's like, I don't know, everything just has like such like a bouncy animated quality to it. Like every pixel feels like it's alive almost.
Right.
And I really got that feeling out of your, I've been recently, I guess it's probably, I don't know exactly when this episode will come out, but I recently was digging through a bunch of the Ludum Dare 48 games. Oh. And your game, Drillvination, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
So that's the last Ludum Dare. Yeah, you are actually.
Yeah, and it's that game is gorgeous, like just absolutely stunning, like and that was what it made me like. I know you've been working on this Sugar engine of yours for a while, but that was when I saw that you had developed that in Sugar, and then when you and Benjamin mentioned that, like, hey, we're going to be using Sugar pretty much to develop all the games for PUNKCAKE, I was like, oh, okay, we're definitely in for a treat here. Not only is there the pedigree between these two developers, but they're using an engine here that's really built to make some special things.
It's basically an in-house engine that has been in the works for several years, so it's a nice advantage to have. But the thing about the Sugar engine is that I actually started working on it in 2018, and my initial goal was to reproduce the workflow that I have with PICO-8, because I loved working with PICO-8, but of course PICO-8 has some pretty
very tight restrictions.
Yeah, exactly. Very tight restrictions, and it's great to make small games, and it can actually be super interesting to make bigger games with it as well. But the resolution restriction in particular is kind of annoying. And I did want to use more colors as well, so I made Sugar, and the engine actually evolves quite a bit since then, because in 2019 I almost didn't work on it at all, because I was on a contract and trying to actually make some money, because that's the problem when you're working on engine, is that it's taking a lot of time, and the engine, while you're working on it, it does not bring any money. But yeah, while I was working on that contract, I actually did something, is that I made a library for another engine, which is Love2D, which is a UI engine, and the library I made was replicating the functions that I had created for Sugar. So the idea was that you would use the library as if you were using the engine.
Okay.
And so I mostly did it for myself because, I wanted to be more comfortable with the functions I was using. And but the thing is, since Sugar is already very much inspired by PICO-8, the functions that I have are actually kind of like an extended set of PICO-8 functions, if you will. And that ended up interesting a few more people. So that was nice. And it really helps me see what was not so good with the functions I had already made for the engine. And so what happened when I stopped working on that contract is that I reworked a bit of everything on the engine. And so I did that. I started doing that in mid 2020. And I stopped doing that. No, I didn't stop doing that. I'm still doing that. I mostly stopped doing that earlier this year, but there are actually a few more things that I want to change. So, it's still very much in progress. But
okay, and probably be tweaking it as you crank out these PUNKCAKE games, I'm sure, like more like,
exactly.
Hey, it'd be nice if there was this functionality. And I don't know anything about coding, let alone building an engine. So, I mean,
I'm trying
I know
not
the general
to get technical.
basics, but no, I this stuff is super interesting to me because I do find it like it seems like there's developers all the time that are very like stuck to one engine, or even, obviously you hear about like Game Maker Studio or Unity or like the big kind of almost like universally usable ones, if that makes sense. Whereas like PICO-8's like a very specific thing, where and I'm guessing Sugar is as well, and even Love 2D kind of is. And I can't say I've played a ton of Love 2D games, but they all have like a similar feel or aesthetic or something to me. I don't know what it is, but like when I play one, I'm like, it makes sense. Yeah.
Game engines tend to have that. They tend to have a sort of how do you say, an impact on the game that you're making with them. And that's just because of the functionalities that they offer, and you just make use of them, and it just reflects on the game. And I mean, for some engines it's more noticeable than others, but it's something you can, like, as a developer, that's something you can learn to hate, actually. But it's okay. It's just... But it's really nice to work with your own engine, because it's a huge investment, actually. Like, it really, really takes a lot of time to make a game engine. It's kind of a bad decision. But
it almost makes it feel like you like, I kind of have to use this now. I've spent so much time building this. Like, I need to get my money's worth out of the time I spent on this.
Exactly. But I'm actually really happy with the work I did. So... that's that's good.
It certainly paid off for Antecrypt and for Drillvination, for that matter. And again, I'm sure, like, I've been seeing your sugar powered hashtag for a long time. So like I know you've been, again, that's a lot of times what would catch my eye with like something that would just pop up on your Twitter, and it might even just be a visual thing, and I'm like, oh, sugar powered, what's that all about? Oh, it's Rémy. Remy's up to no good over there. Which I love. And so I know, like, with Antecrypt, that was sort of inspired by one of Benjamin's previous PICO-8 titles, at least with like the mechanic, and then again really kind of fleshing that out and like saying, how can we expand this into like a more, it still is like a pick up and play arcade game at its core, but it is like it's got a little more depth to it, more multiple difficulty modes. There's just a little more going on, and obviously the visual upgrade and everything. But are you like, because I know you're planning on releasing a game every month, are you kind of pulling from a pool of like previous ideas that either of you have had, or are you pulling from, do you have like some things, because I know it's, at least from your Patreon page, it seems like you two are trying to make arcade games, which I love. It just says making arcade games like nobody's watching. Well, hopefully a lot of people are watching, but
we'll see. But basically Benjamin is actually like the main developer for the games right now. He was the main developer on Antecrypt, and he's also the main developer on the second game. And he's pulling from a backlog of unfinished game ideas and games that he did release on PICO-8 or other engines. And but that he wants to explore more. and for now, he's pulling from that. When I end up being the main developer on a new game, which will happen in August, I think, because
Nice.
I'm mostly taking care of the engine and of the communication for the whole project.
Yeah, the back end and reaching out and stuff. Because I've done all my chatting with you for the most part, and I know you said Benjamin's on a little bit on the shy side. So
it's funny because I'm actually taking care of the back end with the game engine stuff and the front ends with the communication,
like the front facing. Yeah.
It's funny, but
yeah.
But yeah, when I end up making a game, I actually don't know what I'd be doing, but I think I'm going to be going for more for a new idea, something I haven't tried before.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's got to be exciting. And then also cool because, like, again, I know we've talked a little game jam here stuff too. And I think you even mentioned that you and Benjamin worked on something together recently, or at least semi-recently. But, like, no, like, I've seen a lot of games, like, ideas that spawned out of a game jam. And then, you know, a couple years later, I'm buying it on my Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
So it's really cool stuff. Like, I just was playing Charge Kid the other day, which was a game that I think was originally developed for Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam in like 2019, I want to say. And then it was like $2.50 or $5 on my Switch, and I'm like, oh, here's a cool puzzle platformer that, again, it was just like, hey, here's just a bunch more levels that I didn't get a chance to make during the game jam, and you know, some extra flourishes on the visuals and music and all that, and it's like all of a sudden you've got a game. And I think sometimes putting even with YouTube, putting yourselves in that position of like, hey, we got to put out a game every month. You're going to be kind of like putting that limitation on yourself. It's like you're almost forced to come up with creative solutions and stuff. Like it almost seems like it could be a bad thing. Like you'd have to just brute force your way through writer's blocks and stuff. But at the same time, if you got two people and you just have to keep moving, it can help you not get stuck too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because of course I talk a lot about this with Benjamin, and I was like, are you sure that you're going to be able to be happy with your work if you just have 1 month to make the game? And he was like, you know, however long I have to work on any one game, I will never be happy. So be it 1 month or 2 years, I don't care. I'm just going to make it happen. And the game will be there and it'll be good.
You know, that's cool. So true. That's so true because John and I, who John's also on the podcast too, we play in a band together. Yeah. And when we would record our albums, it's like we could sit there and like, oh, we just remix the song again. And it sounds perfect. And then we come back the next day and it's like, no, it sounds off again. It's like at some point you got to just let it go and put it out into the world and say, hey, this is what we made. And we want people to experience it rather than just leave it on our hard drive for no one else to ever check out. You know,
but that's why game jams are so great, because you have that set amount of time and you just have to make something and release it. And if it's not finished, well, you just have to make do. You have to make it look finished, I guess. And that's that.
Or even if it just helps you like brainstorm an idea for your next project.
Yeah,
it just gets the juices flowing, I think.
Right. Yeah. And that's also what we're trying to get from these projects. That 1 month time constraint really helps us making sure we don't spend too much time on any one thing, and that's good. That's good because that's a really common trap in game development.
Yeah, exactly. But you still have like a little bit more time than a game jam to like let it bake in the oven for a little bit and say, let's let this idea like simmer a little bit and see if we can't like get a little more out of it, you know? Yeah.
And it's really important that we are actually two people, because I actually talked to a bunch of other developers these last few weeks, and a lot of them were actually telling me that they would have loved doing this, at some points they had considered doing it on their own. And myself, I considered doing it on my own, releasing one new game every month on Patreon. But the problem is, there's more than meets the eye there. First of all, a lot of game developers have Patreons, but that don't work at all. Because it's just, I don't know why it is actually, but I don't know. That platform doesn't really work also well for game development.
Yeah, but it's a little bit tough. Like unless you're able to do something like you two are trying to do, or Sock Pop, where you're really on a schedule. It is a little tough to just say, hey, support us and will make the game eventually.
Right. Yeah,
I see where it's maybe tough for people.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can make a new game every month, but you will not have enough energy to actually get it out there. Like, yeah, you'll upload it and you'll upload it to Patreon, and the people who are supporting you, they will love it, but you will not have more supporters because you won't have any energy to do the marketing for the game. You won't have any energy to do all of the outreach that's necessary to actually get a sustainable income.
Right.
And that's really the big challenge for us. To have to both make the games, but also make the game actually the project sustainable financially.
Yeah, and that's got to be difficult on no matter how you're releasing indie games these days. You know, I hate to say it, but it's almost an oversaturated market to some degree. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's just. Yeah. Just the other day, I went on my Switch to look like, hey, let's see what games are on sale. Let me just see if I can pick up something real quick. Right. And there were like 2,000 games just on sale. Yeah. And it's like there's 8,000 other games on there. It's like, how do you even, unless you already know what you're looking for, how do you find what? And that's sort of why we started up pursuing Pixels. It's like, man, we're finding all these little hidden gems all the time. We need to tell more people about these games. But yeah, it is a struggle to like, unless you're kind of dedicating time to that, it is really tough to find these games really, kind of off the beaten path.
That's exactly it. It's dedicating time to the outreach side of making the games, because otherwise no one will play the games because no one will know that it exists, and that's what we want to try to avoid.
Yeah, and you two have been doing such a great job. And again, I know you've been doing most of the kind of outreach, front-facing and whatnot. But like, the launch of the Patreon, just how everything is rolled out is just really gotten me really excited.
Nice.
And I know it seems like a lot of the other like PICO-8 community devs and stuff. Like I was talking to the developer from Eggnog Games. I want to say, I'm forgetting their name off the top of my head. But I've just played Meowlionaire recently. I played a bunch of their games, and then they were posting like super excited when you announced PUNKCAKE. Like, so I'm like, nice. The PICO-8 community is tuned in on this. So
yeah,
very cool stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Benjamin and myself, we're both pretty well known on the PICO-8 community. So,
oh yeah, that's definitely where I found both of your stuff. So
yeah. Well, Benjamin actually helped. Not develop, but he tested the very first few versions of PICO-8 before even it was released.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
So he really made some of the first few games that were made with it. And
wow.
So, he had that early developer special kind of place in the community. And his games got a lot of visibility for it, which is really nice.
When you play some of his games too, you can tell that he has like a mastery of that platform. Because the last thing I played from him, I think, was I think he's put out a couple things since, but I played that Pigments game that he had made. I think I talked about it actually on the podcast. He made it for the Disc Room Game Jam.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I liked it way more than I liked Disc Room. I kind of felt bad, but Disc Room, I didn't really like that it had all the extra layers of like I wanted it to just kind of be like an arcade game, kind of like what you two are doing with PUNKCAKE. Like I wanted it to not have all those layers of like you have to accomplish all these different, you have to die this many times in this room and get killed by this many buzzsaws. Like I kind of just wanted to dodge buzzsaws, and that's pretty much what Pigments let me do. And then added in kind of a puzzle element to it as well, where you got to like cover all the ground. I just really loved that game, and still fired up from time to time. Like I love how PICO-8 has that little favorites list, and both of you two have plenty of games that are on my favorites list. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now when it comes to like these types of arcade games, and since that seems to be kind of the approach that you two are taking with PUNKCAKE, like is there any direct inspiration other than coming from the PICO-8 background? Are there any like indie or retro titles or developers that kind of like stick in your mind as like, hey, this is like a big inspiration for what we're trying to do, or at least what you're trying to do?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Since Benjamin and I are like working on the games kind of separately, even though we talk a lot about it and help each other make decisions.
Brainstorming and
but we do have different inspirations, mostly because, well, we have quite the age gap between the two of us.
Okay.
So he's mostly, I mean, I guess he's very much inspired by the games that he played when he was in, I don't know, his 20s or like an adolescent, I guess. Original arcade games from back then.
Okay.
And, games that are super difficult and just hard to finish. And,
right.
But on top of that, he's also very much inspired by tabletop games.
Okay.
Because I know he plays a lot of them. And I think that's a big part of why he's so good with game mechanics and like exploring them.
Yeah.
And
making things fit together, because that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And me personally, I'm not so much into tabletop games, but I'm very much into action games, and especially indie action games. And, well, it's funny, you were talking about Disc Room, and actually one of my favorite designers is JW, Jan Willem. Who is a designer on Disc Room and also on Nuclear Throne.
Oh, I love Nuclear Throne.
Yeah, one of my favorite games as well. And I really like, and also Minutes, of course, which is super
that's
good
right.
as well.
I never finished that. I got stuck somewhere and I never went back and finished it. And I need to go back
really
to that one
for
sure.
Should.
Yeah, it's so cute and charming. Yeah.
And we were talking about restrictions, like Minutes.
Yeah.
It has a pretty small resolution and it's only black and white, and that's so fun and nice, and they did such a good job of it.
And a pretty darn big game for a game that you die every 60 seconds.
Yeah,
they really made a pretty large and expansive game out of that concept.
Yeah. It's super interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, Nuclear Throne is like, and I can sort of see the influence on your games, even going back to something like, I think it was Crash 2 on the PICO-8 that you made. Like, it just has that like kind of that juiciness to the pixels, and like that, how Nuclear Throne just, I mean, it really leans into like the screen shake. And, just everything is very impactful. And I think that you two do a great job of in all of your games, but especially in those.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I certainly try.
Well, you're doing it well.
Thank you very much. But and I don't know. Aside from that, there are a lot of indie games that I like. Actually, I don't know if we can. Yeah, I guess we can speak of inspiration, but Risk of Rain 2.
Yes.
It's I hesitate to speak about it because obviously it's in 3D and I only make 2D games, but Risk of Rain 2 is such a good action game just for all the effects and just the sheer rush of adrenaline when you play it. And that's something I really respect and want to reproduce in my own games because it's just so good. It's just so damn good.
It's so satisfying to play that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you can sync up. I don't know if you play. I've played only a couple times with some friends online, and like, man, that was so fun. Like being able to play 4 players. Yeah, and just it was such a blast. Playing that with pals, but and they did such a good job of kind of translating the original game that was in 2D, and it feels like almost the same game, except it's an over-the-shoulder third-person shooter.
Right. Except it's totally different, but still works.
Yeah. But it's like you can everything you remember from the other game. You're like, I know what to do here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's such a fun game, and they still keep updating it all the time. I think they just, like, I don't know how recently, I guess last time I remember, but, like, there was a new character added not that long ago where I was like, man, I thought they were done updating this game.
I think the last character that I did... Oh, yeah, actually, no, I know what you mean. I did a secret character, I think, in a patch, and but I think they're working on an extension now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Just get even more mileage out of that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's one that I have a really hard time putting down. Yeah.
Actually, I'm thinking another game from these same developers is Deadbolt.
Oh, nice. We talked about, I've never played it, but our buddy DJ, who's on the podcast from time to time, he talked about that game a long time ago and really liked it.
It is so good.
Yeah, because it's kind of stealthy, right? It's a little bit stealthy and platforming, but puzzly as well.
Yeah, and even kind of action as well, I think. Like,
nice.
Because it does have that puzzly aspects, but it's still very... I don't know. Yeah, it's still very action-oriented in a way. And the effects are great, and the music is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, speaking of music, the Risk of Rain soundtracks, both of them are just phenomenal.
Yeah, the guy who's making the audio for all these games is Devaux. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he's great.
I didn't know it was. So it's the same person on Deadbolt too.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that's very cool.
The style is pretty different, but yeah, the man is just so good. He can do it all.
Yeah, that's super awesome. Yeah, I got to go back and I got to play Deadbolt for the first time, but I need to go back and play some more Risk of Rain 2 as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Was there anything else that you were wanting to touch on before we wrap up the interview here, or anything? Any PUNKCAKE stuff coming down the pipeline, or any news or anything like that? Or
I didn't realize that time went by so fast.
Yeah, we can chat more too. I'm here. I got nothing. It's bright and early here, so
well, I'm up for it. But I guess from PUNKCAKE, so I don't even know if we explain what we're doing. But yeah, so obviously we are releasing a new game every month. We just released Antecrypt. We're releasing the games individually on itch.io for $6, and we actually are going to be releasing them on Steam as well, but we're still setting that up for now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. And on both of these platforms, it's going to be $6 for each game. But we're also offering a subscription on Patreon, and then it's a little cheaper. It's €3.
Okay.
And per month, and you get the game when it comes out, or when you subscribe, you get the last game that came out, and then you get the new game every time it comes out. And
nice.
We just released Antecrypt, which is a shooter where you don't control your aiming, and it's pretty crazy and flashy and explosive, and we're really happy with how it turned out. And now we're working on another shooter, actually, and it's a mix between a shooter and a minesweeper.
Ooh.
And I know that sounds intriguing. Sounds
very intriguing. Yeah.
And it's based on not so old projects from Benjamin on PICO-8 that he didn't finish. So you can actually play the PICO-8 version for that one. He's making it happen with Sugar. And
wow, that's so cool. That sounds so intriguing.
Yeah.
And again, after with you two having just put out Antecrypt, and I think you mentioned like it's a kind of a single stick shooter, like it plays like a twin stick shooter, except you don't get to control your cursor. It kind of almost like bounces around the screen an old screensaver does, where it just keeps hitting the walls. Although sometimes it seems to have a mind of its own a little bit, or might be affected by enemies or something.
Yeah, but, some power-ups affect it as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I really like how my favorite thing about arcade games is like the balance between risk and reward. Right. And the game is like so focused around that, where it's like, again, your cursor that just keeps moving at its own free will. You have to get within a certain radius of that cursor to recharge your gun or your weapon. But then it's all about positioning. It's just, which again, I guess every shooter is kind of about positioning. You're always trying to dodge stuff and shoot things. But again, because you're not really, I don't know, you just have to be constantly engaged with where that cursor is going. Like you really can't let your mind slip for even a moment. And I really love that feeling. Like, again, like even like a game that's really trying to pull me in with like story and narrative beats and this and that. Like it doesn't always work for me, but like a game that's really just gripping me with mechanics, that's going to get me every time.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's what you two are focused on. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're coming from at least for my taste, coming from a very similar like design philosophy where I'm just like, if I made games, this is how I would want to make them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're not. Well, I mean, I can't really speak so much for Benjamin because I think he actually likes to put some like written narratives and that kind of stuff in his games. But our main way of speaking through the games is always with the mechanics, and that's what we're keen on working on.
Yeah. Yeah, and it shows. It shows big time. Not only just in this first PUNKCAKE title, but in all of your previous works as well. Because again, like at Pigments, like I was talking about before, I mean, that's a game jam game that was made. I think that was maybe a week-long game jam, but regardless, that's a game that Benjamin probably made and kind of forgot about. Maybe, I mean, I don't know how that stuff works. Maybe you just make game jam games and they stick with you forever. But maybe just made that game and moved on to the next thing. Where I'm like, hey, Pigments is like this game that I tell everyone to play if they boot up the PICO-8. You know, so it's just so funny how, you know, a small little project can turn into like, hey, this is just an addictive experience that I can't put down.
Yeah, it's always nice when that happens. But we might actually make a bigger version of Pigments. I didn't remember the name of the game for a second. But
everything you're saying is just it's just sounding so good to me. I'm so excited to follow along with PUNKCAKE and all that as you two keep growing this project. And are you planning on potentially like kind of using this as a platform? Like is the Sugar engine ever going to be something that's publicly available to people, or like is this maybe a platform to kind of showcase the engine, or is it just kind of a hey, this is my little project I made and I kind of this is our thing that we get to use?
Yeah, well, the thing with the engine is that I don't actually know how to make money out of it. And so for now, I'm still just focused on working on it and making it work for the PUNKCAKE projects and other games that we're making. I do want to put it out eventually, but I don't know when or in what conditions. It is my baby, and I don't know.
It's got to be one of those weird things where you're like, hey, this is my thing. But at the same time, there's got to be also a part of you that's maybe curious of like, I wonder what other people could do with this tool, you know?
Yeah, there is that. And there is also the fact that I actually have quite a few people who are like asking me all the time.
I can't blame them. Yeah, as soon as I see those pixels pop on my feed and you see, what is this sugar-powered hashtag? What's this all about? You're like, oh, I want to get my hands on that.
Right, exactly. And I mean, Benjamin was like that too, actually. When we met, he was like, yeah, I'm really interested in your engine. And I was like,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, well, it's not finished, but sure. Maybe we can
if you want to play around with it.
Yeah, and in the end, he's actually the only other person that I'm having test the engine along with me, and he's actually given me a lot of feedback. But that's the thing is, because I have other few people who want to help test the engine, but the problem is I can't handle all of the feedback. Like already with one person's feedback, I have a lot of work to do. So
right.
Yeah, but I guess the engine will come out to the public at one point in the future, but for now it's ready. Yeah, exactly. For now, it's we're using it as an in-house engine, and we're happy to have it like that. So yeah, and it like even in Drill Venation, to bring that back up. I know that game didn't have any audio on it, but holy, like that is such a flashy game, and it kind of was giving me some Downwell vibes, like as far as the gameplay went, and it was just like, this is so fun. Again, I really just think I've probably played more of your games than Benjamin's off the top of my head, at least, but I've definitely played a good handful from both of you, and I really think like you two have a really great knack for game design. Like, you know, obviously there are tons of great game designers out there, like almost too many, like we were saying, there's almost too many good games out there, but that's never a bad problem to have. And I do think that you two are really in tune with something that is kind of lacking a little bit. Like, again, like even when I know I've mentioned my Switch a few times, I kind of do, like up until I bought that Itch.io bundle for racial justice and equality, because it was just something that I felt like I couldn't pass up. I didn't really dabble much on my PC. Like I just didn't really Oh, really?
I didn't play a lot of PC games. I mostly played console games. I grew up with the Super Nintendo, you know, just always kind of had consoles growing up. And I tend to gravitate towards my Switch, but I'm not always looking for like Breath of the Wild to play and sink hundreds of hours into, you know. Sometimes I really do just want to curl up on the couch while I'm watching Star Trek or something and play a little arcade game like Drillvination or something. Not that that's on the Switch, but you know what I mean? Like something that I could just like play really quickly, or Antecrypt. I mean, I would never be able to put that down on the Switch. I would never go to bed. And again, the only thing that helps me is like, oh, my battery's running low on my laptop. I guess I got to plug it back in and charge it up. But
yeah,
otherwise I'd probably never stop. But
yeah, I don't know. I don't actually own any consoles.
Interesting.
I've never really played consoles besides handhelds. Yeah, handheld consoles.
Yeah.
But not even the Switch, actually. I don't even own the Switch. But older handheld consoles I've played.
The Game Boy, DS, and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I've mostly always played on PC because I find it more immersive, actually. Well, I guess I don't know.
I know what you're saying. I have friends who are very much like where I'm the opposite. Like I kind of want to be lounging on the couch or a comfy chair while I'm playing a game. But like I think that's just because that's how I grew up playing games.
Right.
I have friends who are like, oh no, like I need to be at a desk and sitting at like I can't even like when it comes to third person games like I can't play with mouse and keyboard. Like I just don't have I need to use my thumbs. I can't be using my fingers. Basically, is what it boils down to.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's definitely interesting. And I will say, like, since jumping into the PC, and especially after picking up the bundle and kind of exploring the itch.io route, like, again, finding developers like yourself and Benjamin and exploring the PICO-8, which is in and of itself, I could never play all the games I want to play on that platform alone, you know?
Well, there are a lot of developers who just can't actually afford to make games for consoles. So
right.
It's much easier to make a game for a computer. So of course,
and to release it on your But it's great. There's such like so many cool, again, these game jam games. Like I could talk about them forever. I mean, it's just so much fun. I love these little bite-sized experiences, and I'm super excited to continue to keep playing some more bites. I don't hope that doesn't sound insulting to call them bite-sized experiences, but I'm very much looking forward to digging in to the rest of the PUNKCAKE catalog as time goes on. Yeah,
well, we hope you'll enjoy what we put out.
I'm pretty sure I will. I think that's safe to say. But yeah, I think we can wrap things up here, Rémy.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Where can people find you on the internet, personally and PUNKCAKE? Like, let people know where they can not only pick up Antecrypt, but where they can follow you in the future.
Okay, so my personal Twitter is twitter.com/TrustvolDog. So that's TRASEVOL_DOG.
Nice.
That's a little bit complicated, but whatever.
I'll have links in the episode description too, so don't sweat it.
That's perfect. And but from there you'll find my itch.io page where are most of my games, and then PUNKCAKE. So we have the Patreon. So patreon.com/PUNKCAKE is PUNK. So punk and then cake CAKE.
Great name.
Thank you. we actually did quite a bit of brainstorming before finding it.
Yeah, that's maybe the hardest part. Not really the hardest part, but it's tough to land on that final name.
It is tough, but we're really happy with what we found in the end.
It's great, and I think it gets the like vibe and the aesthetic across. Like it really like kind of sets the tone, I think.
Right. Yeah. We're really happy with it, and then you can find the games on itch.io, and that's PUNKCAKE.itch.io. And yeah, that's it. And if you happen to be press, we actually have a press kit on our itch.io page. So yeah, just reach out to us. We wanna speak to the world.
Yes, and the world needs to speak to you because everyone needs to play your games. Again, if you're an arcade fan, not only like Rémy was just saying, go explore their back catalog, and very much look forward to what they're doing next. Because if you like arcade action and flashy retro indie stuff, like you just can't go wrong with either of these two here.
That's a very good description of what we're doing.
Perfect. I'm glad I'm not out of turn here, but awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in and listening, and thanks again for joining us, Rémy. This was a super great time and making a little time. And on a France holiday as well, first day of summer here. So, hopefully you can enjoy the rest of the evening, and hopefully I can maybe go back to sleep and get a little nap here.
Right. Sorry to make you wake up so early.
No, I'm half kidding. I'm always up this early anyways, so don't sweat it all. But thanks again for joining us, Rémy, and take care, and we'll catch you next week, everybody.
Nice.
The stuff that you two are doing is like kind of right, and that's kind of why I got so pulled into PICO-8 for a while, and still play all the time. But like, it's just like it's kind of retro and indie,
Yeah, and we're actually really interested in making games that are retro, but are also very modern in our approach to the game design, for one thing, but also even the visuals. Even though we're gonna make games with big pixels and things that are very reminiscent of the 80s or the 90s, we still want it. I mean, actually, Antecrypt is a perfect example because it's a game set in the future, but you're using a sort of like terminal, like old school terminal, but from the future. And that's exactly what we want, right? Like, what if we can reimagine retro stuff, like retro hardware?
Yeah, and that's a great way. It does really feel like you're like, and even like I love how the game's like you're fighting on the last hard drive of humanity or whatever. Such a cool concept, like, and it really does. It feels like you're like inside of a computer system. It's really cool.